All right, so there is a growing demographic of men, myself included, who just we don't respond to guilt, right? Guilt, pejorative labels, right? Being told that something's wrong with us. We're fed up, and that's starting to create a real problem for modern women and the systems, these gynocentric systems who depend on that. They depend on us acquiescing. And so, got a good one here from Alexander Gray. So, the reluctant enemy, how basic pattern recognition woke men up. And yeah, let's see what he has to say.
Modern women have a massive problem on their hands. There is a huge demographic of men that defies their labels, and they don't know what to do with these guys. They're a huge issue because they are beyond reproach. They don't feel ashamed of themselves or of their behavior. And so the old control mechanisms that feminism used of moral intimidation, they're no longer effective. You know, these guys are not.
Yeah, their venom has lost its potency because they are so used to men cowering underneath them because they project this moral superiority, right? And once you poke the bear enough, eventually the bear he's going to do something. And what we're doing is we're not backing down. We're just saying, I don't care. You can say whatever you want. It has no effect on me whatsoever. We have no shame or guilt when it comes to doing what we think is right and pushing back against this system, this feminist system, these feminist ideologies, and just modern white women and their Karen behavior. We are so over their Karen behavior. I think even a lot of other women are sick of it. Women that don't prescribe to that. Unfortunately, there's not enough of those women, but they do exist.
Doormats, but they're also not villains. You know, modern women, they don't know what to do with a man like that. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video, the journey of this justice.
Yeah, they're like, when you're not phased by their tactics, they get confused. They're like, what? That's supposed to work. I'm a woman. He's supposed to feel bad. We don't feel bad.
Oriented man, and how he came to exist outside of their moral system. Because despite what they want to tell you about young men and the inherent nature of masculinity, that they're just, you know, insecure little boys with big egos and they're scared of female power, the truth is very different. When young men come of age, they are usually very idealistic, very principled in their values. They really have
idealistic for sure. I was way more idealistic as a young lad than I am now. Now I'm just realistic and can be cynical at times.
Have strong commitments to justice and fairness and equality. And so for a lot of these young guys being brought up in this incredibly, you know, feminine-centric society, when they hear the historical treatment of women, you know, they can't vote, they can't own property, you know, they couldn't even work until half a century ago and all of this stuff, it awakens that sense of justice inside young men. And they think, well, yeah, that's not fair. Everybody should be treated as individuals. And they wholeheartedly believe in the...
And all of that history is BS. It's all BS, especially with voting. Women, feminist women got in the way of these women voting. The ones that showed up to the that referendum. It was it was always feminist women they actually banned women's ability to vote for if they wanted to vote or not. So yeah, it wasn't dudes, it was women.
The liberal humanist, you know, feminist equality vision, the utopia that we're all seeking, they're 100% on board with that. They've swallowed the propaganda like that says that this is going to be a positive thing and that, you know, patriarchal men are the problem and all of that stuff. They are allies, right? They have a sincere commitment. But what feminists don't understand is that commitment was always predicated on the notion of this being an expression of justice and of fairness. This was never about tribalism for men, and we're going to get into why that's significant, and it is very significant a little bit later on. But this allyship does not last. You tend to find young men are getting radicalized younger and younger because their treatment is worse. You know, he thinks, okay, I'm on board. We're all equals, we're all individuals. This is about fairness and equality.
I don't really like the word radicalization, being radicalized. We're just waking up to the actual truth because we've been living in this world of lies for so long, and the lies that people believe in don't benefit us. And when you wake up to the fact that they're lies and then you speak the truth, then you also don't get any benefits either, other than living in the fullness of the truth, right? And being able to be, I guess, we are part of the, if you want to call it the resistance or something, we are the actual resistance, because the feminism is the mainstream, right? It's not grassroots, it's not fringe, it's not alternative. It is the culture. We live in a feminist culture. So when they talk about that they're victims and then they're marginalized, no, they're not. They are the system. Modern women are the system.
And that's what he believes. And he thinks that that's what everybody else believes. He thinks that's the system, the vision. But increasingly, what he begins to notice is that it does not matter how sincere he is in trying to put, women as equals and make sure he's checking his own privilege. He's still treated as though he's born with some kind of original sin, this immutable characteristic of masculinity that he's told is inherently toxic, and that he's the beneficiary of this privileged patriarchal position. And this bad treatment is not enough in the first instance to turn him off. No, he doubles down. He thinks, oh my goodness, it's my job as an ally of this cause and as a man who's meant to protect women. If they're telling me that I'm the problem, I'm just gonna search even harder.
He's describing weak men, the mentally weak men, the men with low testosterone. I never was like that. Even when I was a skinny hipster kid or a scene kid, even when I straightened my hair and wore chick pants, I never believed in feminism or any of that stuff or privilege. All the stuff that you hear now from progressives. My idea of liberalism or being liberal was just, I moved from the panhandle of Texas to Portland, Oregon. My idea of more liberal was just a place where they were more accepting of tattoos. That was literally it. I was not political whatsoever. I didn't even think about feminism. I may have given women more of a benefit of the doubt more back then, of course. And I was somewhat of a simp in my younger years. If it was a girl I really liked, learn the hard way from that one. But yeah, the guy that he's describing is not me. But I can't stand the guy that he is talking about. The guy that's like, yeah, I'm an ally of women. I hate the word ally, honestly. That word has just been ruined by feminism and lefties.
So he goes into this intense self-inquiry, trying to find out where his blind spots are, the ways that he might still be discriminating against women that he doesn't even realize it. He's trying to find all of his privilege, and he just goes further and further and further. And he gets to the point where he is self-censoring preemptively. There's certain thoughts, certain ideas he doesn't even allow himself to think, let alone express, because he doesn't want to make women uncomfortable. And he believes sincerely that if he contorts himself enough into this shape that's going to be acceptable to women, then suddenly he's going to be accepted and he will be treated as an equal. But that does not happen. Doesn't matter how much he self-censors, there's still no change. And it's at this point where...
Yeah, that reminds me of, what does George Carlin say? He says, political correctness is America's newest form of intolerance. And it is especially pernicious because it comes disguised as tolerance, right? You hear tolerance a lot from them. And it presents itself as fairness, yet attempts to restrict and control people's language with strict codes and rigid rules. That's what it is. It's just totalitarianism. It's totalitarianism or authoritarianism disguised as manners.
If he's a principled young guy and he was really engaged in this project with absolute sincerity, that he has to stop and think, okay, usually I put in this input, it's going to lead to this outcome. There's going to be some consistency, some predictability. That's what can be expected if I've understood the parameters of the experiment correctly. But it doesn't seem to be mattering what I do, what action I take, what principles I espouse, I'm still getting the same result. And I've tried everything. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the problem isn't me. Could that be possible? Could these people be wrong? Yeah, they are. Just quickly, you guys know that incredible feeling that comes when you're using a discover that the issue, you won't find it anywhere, that a sincere man is going to discover that the issue was not him, the issue was the system. The system itself was broken. This is the result not of him being prejudiced against women or having hatred in his heart. This is simple pattern recognition. And any halfway intelligent man is going to reach this conclusion inevitably. It's inescapable. And so what do you do from that stage? You know, he starts to experiment with some new ideas and develop some new values. But what's important to understand is that there's going to be a propaganda campaign waged to define this new journey that this guy is on. You know, some people will say he's trying to roll back the clock, he's being toxic, and you know, he believes in a male-dominated world and all of this nonsense. But from the perspective of the man, he's actually the one who's staying true to the original vision, because in all of this, he never rejected the principle of fairness or justice or equality. He just correctly identified that the system was not living up to its own stated ideals.
Right. They sell it as fairness and justice, but it is not fairness and justice. At least not for a lot of men. Because it's a gynocentric system. Therefore, it's going to benefit women. And yeah, sometimes there is justice that prevails. Yeah, it's not as if every time the system crashes down on someone, there's injustice done, but it happens more than it should because of the type of system that it is.
Because if it was, then how could we be living with so much of this Schrodinger's feminism? You know, why is he still not being treated as an equal? And why is it that the expectations and responsibilities of women seem to constantly shift and change according to their whims, as opposed to...
Well, feminism is not about equality. That's what they like to sell you. It's a turd in a dress. It's not what they say it is. It's all about female supremacy and destroying the family.
To any objectively measurable set of values or ideals. You know, women have employed this hybrid strategy. And this is not an accident. This is a strategy that they've employed. This sense that they can be empowered, you know, on the one hand, but also victims when the moment requires it to be, you know, and they can shift between the two, and you never know which kind of woman you're going to get. You know, like in the Schrodinger's cat, you know, a particle that exists in an observable state is going to change based on who's observing it. Well, the same with a woman. You don't know what kind of a woman you're going to get. Is she a damsel in distress or a boss babe? It's going to depend. The one consistency.
Yeah, if the right, if she feels like the AC in her office is too cold, well, that's sexism. If she's not making as much as her male counterparts, that's sexism. Whatever it is, if there's a role at her workplace that's dominated by men, and she wants to be in that role, but she doesn't have the qualification, she's going to just scream sexism. But if the Titanic's going down, well then, oh my God, where are the lifeboats, right? If the house is on fire, where are the strong firefighting men to help me, to rescue me from this burning house before I die from smoke inhalation, right? I need a strong man to carry me out the window, throw me over his shoulder, all that good stuff. Yeah, it's this annoying oscillation.
See, it's always that it's going to benefit her. So we're not really talking about ideals then. We're just talking about gender supremacy. We're talking about pure, naked self-interest, just raw selfishness, tribalism. That's what we're going through. And it's a very effective strategy, this hybrid approach from women, because it gives them the privilege of the victim status without the responsibility that would come with adopting the same responsibilities that a man typically has. You know, when he
sounds a little sexist, don't you think?
Is put in a leadership or an authority position. You know, always, if you've got responsibilities, they are tied to some kind of authority. But what we live in right now is this system where that's not true. So let's look at a couple of examples. You know, reproduction is a powerful one, because a man has no authority as to whether or not a child is brought to term. Whether or not an abortion is gotten is completely up to the woman. So he has no authority. He's not in charge there. And yet, financially, it is still his responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, the same goes in child custody cases. He's told, like, oh, you've got to step up, be an equal parent. He's like, okay, no worries. So do I get my children half the time? Oh, no. No, mothers are the real parents. But you still have to pay. You have to finance the time that your children are with her. That's still your responsibility, but it's not your authority.
Yeah.
You know, this Schrodinger's feminism, you see it when it comes to work discrimination. You know, they're endlessly talking about the gender pay gap and how there needs to be equality in the workplace, but it's only for the cushy, air-conditioned office job.
It's not the bricklayers, no. It's not the plumbers. It's not the janitors. No. And if you look at models or anything like that, I mean, a lot of women models get paid more than male models. So there's a gender pay gap there. That's not fair towards men. They don't talk about that.
You know, they want to be politicians or CEOs or whatever. There's no push to have equal gender representation on oil rigs or in like logging and bricky work. You know, that's all still got to be men. The hard physical labor, the dangerous labor, that's men, you know? So workplace equality only in certain areas. And of course, I think one of the most important ones to bring up is when it comes to discussions of like sexual assault, you know, because we don't hold women accountable for false accusations.
No.
You know, that's not even considered a crime in most jurisdictions. And yet the penalties, you know, for unproven, in many cases, instances of sexual assault or rape, you know, from a man to a woman is intense. And you think, okay, so they have the privilege of being able to launch these incredibly damning and reputation and life-destroying accusations. You know, they get that privilege, but the responsibility that would be attached to that, which is that they have to be telling the truth, otherwise there are consequences, women are just let off the hook from that.
Yeah.
A lot of men, they look at all of this and they think, okay, this was never about fairness and equality. How could you possibly claim that? We see through it. Doesn't matter what words you use. Look at the results. This is plain for everybody to see. So they correctly identify that they've been duped. You know, men have been manipulated into supporting a system under the guise of appealing to the masculine sense of honor and justice, but actually it was a female supremacist movement all along. It was a wolf in sheep's clothing, a Trojan.
The matriarchy is detrimental to society. It is. Masculine republics give way to feminine democracies, and feminine democracies give way to tyranny. That's the way she goes.
Horse, you know, women have managed to sneak in a whole new agenda and got men to go along with it because men didn't realize the game that was being played. Women were operating at a deeper layer, and it's only when a lot of men take the time to realize that their own treatment in this system is blatantly, objectively, unjustifiably unequal and unfair that they start to examine things a little bit deeper. And that's an interesting point when you get to that position, because for men, they start to have that sense that there's nothing left for them to lose. You know, there is no fallback or cushion for men, because if he's being shamed and ridiculed and blamed for everything that's going wrong in society, and inevitably he's just crushed under all of this weight and his life turns out to be a failure, there is no sympathy for the immense social pressure that was brought down upon him. All of his failures, and this is true for men everywhere, are framed as an individual failure of his own, like a moral failing. You know, you're just not manly enough. You didn't show enough grit and determination and courage. You know, it's your fault. If you were a proper man, whatever that means, they never define it, then you would have been able to succeed. You know, and contrast that with how women's failures are received, because you'll notice that anytime there's a woman, I wouldn't even say failing, I would say mildly uncomfortable, then suddenly that is a systemic failure. You know, that's a societal issue. It's not a moral failing on her part as an individual. No, we all need to do better to protect women and to ensure that they're never uncomfortable, that they never fail. It's so unequal. It's just absurd. I can't believe we live in this society and this isn't the main thing we're talking about at all moments, the blatantly unfair treatment of men and women in this regard and how we approach failure. But at that point, men stop being loyal to the system. When he realizes there is no cushion for him, there's no safety net, there's no appetite for social reform and change on his behalf, he's just going to be blamed whether he succeeds or if he fails, then he starts to withdraw from that system. And it's a rational thing to do so, because to peg your destiny to a system that inherently has your best interests, sorry, it inherently does not have your best interests at heart, that's a completely logical move to make.
Yeah, why would you be loyal to that? Men are finally waking up to that, and they're saying no for once. They're not going to be guilted anymore. Like I said, they're not going to be accepting any of these labels. They're giving pushback, and I mean the correct move in a lot of instances is just to walk away from it. I know that's a possibly an overused phrase. Men are walking away, but that's exactly what we're doing. We can, if we so choose. We're sick and tired of investing in something that is not invested in us. I mean, you're just damned if you do and damned if you don't in this particular society that we live in today as a man. And men are just trying to get out as unscathed as possible. It's becoming very hard to do that. There are ways to get outside of this system. But you still have to, of course, interact with women, especially if you're, if you don't work from home, if you're working out somewhere, even working on, I mean, I still had to interact with women when I had a tech, when I worked in tech and like tech sales jobs and stuff, when I was working remote for these startups, just having to sit through these god awful Zooms with women, just talking about the dumbest shit, just talking about Love Island and these trips they went on, people in these particular shows, talking about that, talking about the horrible books, the true crime and the fantasy books they were reading. My God, dude, it's just being a man in anywhere, out in public or at work. It's just, you can't, it's inescapable. That's why men are just so drawn to the wilderness and want to escape and just have a plot of land, something they can tend to, right? I would rather deal with survival, right? Having to figure out what to eat, how to build, like building a shelter, all of that. I would rather have that existence than this current existence of the 9 to 5 and having to survive modernity and everything that it has to bring and to offer.
To continue to show loyalty to that system.
Because it's not living. It's not living. At least if you're surviving out in the wilderness, you are truly living. No one is truly living anymore. We're just existing. There's no meaning. There's no purpose anymore. The marrow of life has been sucked out of the bone.
Is akin to committing like a type of suicide. You'd never do it. And of course, as men start to withdraw, you're going to encounter a lot of the accusations like, oh, you hate women, you're selfish, shame on you. But that shaming tactic is not going to work when a man has seen through the game that's been played. Once upon a time when he really believed in the fairness and the equality and all of those ideals, it would have been very effective because you could have appealed to that. Like, hey, aren't you an honorable man? Don't you believe in justice? And he's like, oh, I do. That's who I want to be. So, oh, okay, I'll get back in there. But once he sees that he's being manipulated and that your words mean nothing, he's actually paying attention to your behavior, and he sees how hollow your stated ideals are, then you lose the ability to shame him into compliance because he no longer recognizes you as a moral authority. He's not going to look to you for approval for his behavior because your approval means nothing. This is not even like a statement made out of anger or hatred. It's just a logical fact. If your words never matched your actions, then why would you assume that your insulting words are going to have any impact on him?
We're sick of living lives where we have to comply and be subjugated. Plain and simple.
He is now elevated. He's existing in a different plane where you can no longer reach him. So the labels that they used to use, like you're privileged, you're patriarchal, you're sexist, whatever, for a time that would have been effective. But when you overuse these labels to describe not just men who genuinely hate women, but any man who dares ask a single question about his own rights compared to a woman's rights, when you call him a sexist, eventually the word just stops having any impact. It has any meaning. They've oversaturated the vocabulary around this stuff to the point where men are largely able to tune it out. Some men actually take a kind of perverse, fun pleasure. Like, I'm a sexist, I'm a misogynist. Tell me more. Tell me more how.
That really, dude, it's that right there it just disarms them when you're just like, yeah, totally, like you're sexist, yeah, yep, you're a misogynist, yeah, then right, because you're like, I don't feel any guilt for it, yeah, okay, sure, you just lean into it. It completely destroys any moral high ground they thought that they had. Like, yeah, when you're unashamed, it completely annihilates their brain. They are just they shut down. They have nothing. They have no reserves. They're a one trick pony. That used to be the thing to where they would, you'd clutch your pearls and be like, oh gosh, oh no. You'd have some. They'd be able to strike some fear in you to tighten the leash a little bit, pull the leash, be like, nah, they'd be like a son, zap you like he does his dog, but doesn't work. It's like, dude, keep shocking me. I don't care.
How I'm the one.
Hold a son, Piker.
Oh God, maybe I've reached this point. Tell me more about how I'm the one who's causing all these issues. Yeah, like my patriarchy, my misogyny, that's actually at the core of all the issues we're facing in society. Oh yeah, like we have.
And my shirts that I'm selling, this is a response to that. This is my way of having no guilt or shame, right? You have the future is female shirts, and then I took it, and then I just crossed out the F and the E. So now it just says the future is male. And yeah, if you want to buy them, you can go and pick them up down below. You can see I'll go ahead and link my shop down below. I've got those shirts that come in black and white, just saying. So they're pretty snazzy.
I haven't heard that story enough. And like I'm having a laugh. I don't know if you guys are. I'm not saying you need to find this funny, but sometimes I feel angry about it, so I oscillate. But the point, regardless of whatever your emotional experience of it is that once you don't take that kind of stuff seriously, then you have reached a new stage of psychological autonomy. And that is extremely dangerous to the system because you can no longer be controlled. You're beyond shame. And for a system that depends upon male labor and male sacrifice and male honor and virtue in order to keep functioning, to withdraw your support of that system is existential.
I think this is why a lot of men are drawn to the comedy scene now, because you have so many comedians that just they just bash on feminism, and they have zero. They just they don't care. Like Patrice O'Neal, R.I.P. him. Bill Burr used to, not anymore. Tom Segura a bit. There are a lot of them out there now that they don't give a shit, and it's great. It's refreshing. And a lot of men now, they are just applying that comedy to these interactions with these women, these Karens out there. And I love watching videos where these Karens flip out on these comedians and they just completely annihilate them, these hecklers. So that's it. Now men are basically these comedians. We are just like these comedians, and we're treating liberal white women and modern white women like these hecklers. We shut them down. We don't care. We're up here. There are plenty of people that think like us, that enjoy what we have to say. They live in the same reality, actual reality. And so we're done with your shit, okay? We're not going to hear it anymore. We're not going to listen to it anymore. Plain and simple. We're going to laugh about it too. We're going to laugh in your face. That is what we're going to do, because we're sick and tired of it. Men are completely over it. We're over it. It's been long enough. All right? So,
the reason why you're seeing such an intense effort to shame men, to bring them back into the fold, is because at a deep level, for all their words about female independence, women recognize deep down that they absolutely need men. They need them to continue to keep this whole system functioning and operating. And so What are they going to do when men start to withdraw? Because he's not the villain.
we're not.
He's also just not a lapdog.
Right. I'm not a villain, but I'm not a lapdog either, okay? I deserve to be treated with respect, and I'm sick of being told that my masculine nature is the problem, and that I need to leash myself, right? I'm not allowed to say certain things, right? The political correctness again, the authoritarianism disguised as manners, right? I want to speak plainly. A lot of the modern women, they hate it. They hate it when you speak plainly. Then that's where the tone policing comes in. Men are done with that. Men just want to live peaceful lives. We want to just come home and relax and turn our brains off. And we want to be respected. Society gives us nothing. So therefore, we reject society. We walk away from it, and we want to go out into the woods and be left alone. Majority of men, they just want to be left alone. That's it, right? They want to go chop wood and hang out with their dog. That's it. Hunt, skin the animals, wear their fur, eat their meat, go fishing, build a fort, like a log cabin. That's the thing. Like when we were kids, we built forts. Then we wanted a treehouse. Now we want our log cabin. We just want our log cabin. Damn it.
Now, this is not a guy who started off as inherently sexist. As I said, he started off as an ally, but it was your...
I'm the product of feminism. This is what happens when feminism it just won't leave you alone. We are created by feminists. Feminists create us. Feminists create the very men that they hate. The patriarchy that they whine about. We were created by what you've done to us, in the way that you talk to us, right?
Your inconsistency, your brutal treatment of him as having some kind of original sin that drove him to this conclusion. And it's inevitable. You can't stop it because it's completely logical that he'd reach this conclusion. The guys listening to me speak right now, who watch all the way to the ends of these videos, they do so because they're reaching the same conclusion. I happen to be the one who has the channel, but often I'm probably not even teaching you guys anything new. I'm just putting words to conclusions you've already reached independently. And it's just nice to have someone who's actually articulating it for you, to give you some new vocabulary, clarify it in your mind. But
yeah, and I'm going to leave it there. There's not much left. There's like another minute and a half. So I'm going to leave the link down below. So go check him out if you haven't already. I'm sure that most of my subscribers already subscribed to him. But if you're not, Alexander Grace, cool guy. So I'll leave that down below. But yeah, I mean, men, we're sick and tired of being treated like lapdogs. We're done. We're done. We're done. We're not going to be, we're not going to feel guilty for our nature, our masculine nature. Right? We're going to double down. That's what we're doing now. We're doubling down and we're saying no. And we're laughing in these modern women's faces. Right? And yeah, we aren't, I'm not saying anything new. Like he said, he's not saying anything new. I'm not saying anything new. Just putting flesh on bone, adding new vocabulary to your lexicon, whatever. But I'm here to embolden men to not be ashamed, right? To live your life unashamed and go out and get what you want if you can even get it now. If you can get it, it's triple the price it used to be. So central banks are destroying everything. Yay, communism. So, but that's pretty much it for now, guys. I appreciate you taking the time. So yeah, go check him out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.